That works.
Is that your good side?
Huh?
Is that your good
Yeah.
side?
Well, Kevin just leaves his head that way. It looks like he has a mess with the chair.
Okay, we're good to go, Jonathan.
Good to go?
Good to go.
All right, today is January 8th, 2021. The time is 5:32. At this meeting of the Tilton Northfield Fire District and EMS Budget Committee come to order. All right, the Chair of the Budget Committee finds that due to the state of emergency declared by the Governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet in person and electronically. Please note that the location to attend the meeting is Northfield Town Hall at 21 Summer Street in Northfield. If you are unable to join the meeting in person and wish to observe and listen electronically, which is authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. Okay. We are utilizing Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the Budget Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following number. Do they have to dial pound?
No.
1-603-370-3071. And the phone conference ID number is 612-440-994#. Or by emailing info@tnfd.org. So the invitation to join the meeting on your computer or mobile app. If anybody has a problem, please email ktobine@tnfd.org. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Okay, let's start with attendance. Oh, Jason. Yes, you start.
Jason Wright, President.
Kevin
Mulder.
Yeah.
Eric Pryor?
And who's online?
Charlie Brooke, President. Scott Lewandowski, President.
Yes, great, okay. And we have,
I could hear that much better.
Mike Seacock, IT.
Abby Colvine, admin assistant. And also online is Tim Jewett, deputy chief.
okay. All right, so we have minutes. I didn't have a chance to read these.
Wait for a motion.
Looks like we still have to keep the reading. And then you have to read the next set. We'll just be that far ahead. So, yes. All right, anybody see any corrections, changes to December 4th?
I have one.
Okay.
Under operating executives 4130, it says Scott asked why that sentence. That was not me.
What page is that on, Scott? Okay, thank you.
Third page.
Got it. That was not you?
No.
Anybody remember asking a
I
question?
might have. That sounds like me.
Okay, so it's Jason.
I know I've asked it in the past.
Okay. All right,
Anything else? Motion to accept the minutes of 12/04/2020 as corrected.
Second.
Any more discussion?
You making the motion?
I didn't make a motion. I don't make a motion, but
That's what I
on the
was
table for discussion.
I was waiting for a
So
so
if there's no motion, there's no.
Oh,
It sounds like you made a
people do
motion
that.
to me, so sorry.
A lot of people do that, but
She
you don't have to
was
make
seeking
a
a
motion.
motion.
It's just to
So
have a
moved.
conversation. So
So moved.
I moved it, it's seconded, no discussion, we're done, vote. Start with Jason.
Charlie says yes.
Go there.
Roll
Jason
call
Wright,
vote.
yes.
Kevin? Mr. Kevin? He's thinking.
No.
Jane?
Yes.
Jason? But yeah, Eric?
Yes.
I look right at you. And we heard from Charlie, how about Scott?
Scott, yes.
Catherine, yeah. All right, minutes of December 18th. Everybody read them?
Yeah.
thank you, Katie, for the motion.
Oh. No, any changes, corrections to those minutes? Everybody good?
Make a motion to accept the minutes of December 18th as written.
Second. Discussion, no more discussion, we're good? Roll call vote, please.
Jason Wright, yes.
Evan Waldron, yes.
Jane Alden abstain.
Eric?
Eric Pyrie, yes.
Charlie? Or Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Catherine Dawson, yes. All right. So, the budget. We stopped, and I don't remember where we stopped reviewing
It was
this.
on page 5, under salaries and wages.
It was right in that school training line.
No, it was above there, because you didn't do anything on salaries and wages other than the overtime.
You said page 5,
Yes, page 5.
so we were down
Almost to the bottom.
4220.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so do you want to continue going through this line by line? Has everybody had an opportunity to study it? Do you have specific lines you want to discuss?
Since you already voted on the overtime, could I open that up for discussion since I wasn't present?
Can we get back to it? I'd kind of like to get through
Sure.
the budget. Anybody?
What? What was the question?
So my question was, do you want to, we're pretty much going line by line by line through this budget, and I don't mind doing that at all. But if you've studied it since the last time we met, you may have just specific questions in specific areas. And, you know, which means we don't have to go line by line, but I'll do whatever you want.
Which page does the apparatus and equipment fund budget start on?
Well, way at the end, I think it's page 12, 13, or something like that.
Oh, we could go by categories, so 4220 fire, salaries and wages. You know,
Right.
so the question is, does anybody have anything there they have concerns about?
So, given the fact, or given my opinion that the vast majority of this, of the committee members are content to do nothing but rubber stamp the budget as presented, I'm going to move that we approve everything in one lump sum from the point where we left off at the last meeting to the top of page 12, where we start the apparatus equipment fund, and then go through that out of the budget.
So, before you do that, I was going to say this after I go through the budget. So, after our last meeting, and going through this budget, thinking about this budget, I went through my concern of the new hires. Well, this is just me talking. I haven't discussed this with anybody here, and they all know this.
You all voted in favor.
Well, I voted in favor of yes. So, surprise, surprise. I think things over. I hear. I went through and took everything I could find that had to do with the grant, the new 4 employees from the grant. But I do remember that there was a conversation also for part-time, or what do you call them? The
You were looking to grow the
Call.
call side.
Paul, staff?
call staff. So, anyway, this concerns the grant people, and I came up with a total of $353,519.67. But the grant will cover for those employees this year. There's probably other costs in there, but I couldn't identify them. So my point in bringing this up is, I don't like to see these things in the budget. I know you've got a grant to cover it. 4 years or 3 years?
3 years.
3 years. Oh, I've got it right there. So we hire these individuals, and 3 years from now, we're still going to have them, and it's going to cost more than this each year. There hasn't been a real discussion at the district meeting about hiring these 4 individuals. And I think that needs to take place. And Eric said that the commissioners, I must call them selectmen, commissioners plan to discuss that at the district meeting. So my question is, can we take this money out of this budget and have the commissioners present them as a warrant article?
The grant, as awarded, the latest that these firefighters can start is February 20th of this year. So they're going to be already working before the district meeting. That's part of the conditions of the grant. We would like to have them start on February 1st because of the way our work cycle, we have a 28-day work cycle and things like that.
The real answer to your question is yes, that can absolutely take place. But you've got to get, to take it out, you've got to get a majority of this committee to do so.
Oh, I understand
And
that.
then you've got to get the commissioners to actually put it in a warrant article. So
I understand that.
and the other side of this double-edged sword is these people are gonna be employed before we have permission to employ them.
Well, and that's what concerns me. I mean, and I don't know if there's a law out there that says the legislative body has to have the say on hiring. They certainly have the say on raising and appropriating.
That's what we do.
But I'm just concerned that we're increasing this budget by this much. And in 4 years, the chances are those new hires aren't going anywhere.
Well, the
I mean,
cost-
because my point is, if we hire them now, I assume we're hiring because there's a belief that we need them.
That's correct.
But again, that hasn't been discussed at any district meeting that I remember, at least in length. And why we need to have them, that conversation hasn't had with the legislative body. So basically, if we stick it in the budget, we have another meeting like we had in 2020. You know, there's no real explaining to the legislative body why we're hiring them, what the needs are, what's the statistics that shows we do need to hire these people. So, I mean, I'm just throwing it out
And
there. It's just me.
The costs are gonna increase every year anyway.
Oh, yeah, in 4
Because
years.
In no year is it 100% covered by the grant.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, there's
It goes
costs
up
in
and it
here
goes up
that
and it
aren't
goes up.
covered by the grant. It's
And
$9,000 worth.
in
It's
year
not
2,
covered.
we're gonna wanna give them a raise. In year 3, we're gonna wanna give them a raise. Because show me a year of this budget that hasn't included the raise.
And I'm not saying I don't think we don't need them. I, as a legislative body member taxpayer, that case hasn't been made to me. So, members of the budget committee, I don't know if you want to have this discussion, where you want to go with it. That's just where I've been.
Well, I probably wasn't going about it the right way at the last meeting. But I've been thinking about it too. And, you know, Eric made a point of suggesting that in 3 years, that our needs could be more or less. And in his, you know, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that it was a 3-year experiment to collect further data and to take a, you know, every year is a hard look at what we do and how we do it, or, you know, what the commissioners are going to do. My thought is I would have been more supportive if we could have delivered a budget that found ways to absorb some of these extra costs, to say, because, you know, this kind of rolled to the street is, oh, it's free money. Now we're discovering that it isn't free money, because something as innocuous as an overtime line had some good airtime last time we met, to the fact that one of the other conditions of the grant is that 4 people have to be on the shift, whether they're the new hires or not. So now we've increased our overtime need. We went, you know, from having to staff 3, and you can't, you know, if you have a 4th person that calls out, you can't just roll with 3. You have to fulfill it and have 4. And I think the chief's probably going to get into that tonight as to that number. So now that's not in the grant. That's the rest of the raise and appropriate. So that's one of those soft costs that, you know, overtime's, I know the number the chief puts out is not nearly what our total exposure is if everybody took every day an hour of benefit that they had coming their way. But in terms of staffing, just to find out, you know, we're letting the grant drive how we do things and what we do. To even bringing people on board, they have to be hired before our voting body really gets to get involved. And, you know, maybe it's not their, in the book and page, maybe it's not their place to do the hiring and all that stuff. No, that's the chief's job. The commissioners have to do all that and staffing. But we've got kind of a unique model of how we do things in these 2 communities, you know. And to go to a district meeting and say, oh, you know, we're going to talk about hiring, and these folks have already been hired, right? Because the grant said we had to. So we're letting the grant drive our business, or drive how we do it, and that does frustrate me that well, because the grant said this and the grant said that, and, you know, there was a public hearing that was favorable. Well, if you only, you know, if you only have the people that are for it, then you don't have a good cross-section of the voting body, you know, it's hard to get a read on a public hearing, because you might just get, you know, the torches and the pitchforks, or you might get everybody that's for it. So I agree, Catherine, this is a tough one to dive into, because we don't know every little cost. And to go back to my original point, I think I would have been more supportive of doing a hiring thing if we could find a way to say, you know, we found some other opportunities to save some money within the budget, to try to make this happen for, you know, and we're gonna have to continue, but I don't see that that's happening, because I think Kevin's remark about, you know, just kind of rubber stamping a good majority of it, that, you know, I don't know the makeup of the committee this time, if it's all, you know, a majority of spenders and a minority of non-spenders or less spenders. Then I'm trying to look at 2020 at the bottom line, and have all the bills been paid, and, you know, are we underspent, overspent, and you know, I guess that's where I want to look and say, where did we not spend in 2020? You know, that's one of my questions. Looking at the 1/7 spreadsheet, did we pay all the bills, or we got some stuff hanging out there still?
You still have some stuff hanging out there?
Yeah.
At the, was it Tuesday night?
Yes.
The commissioners meeting, the chief informed us that though at one point late last year, we were looking at being in the red, we ended up, I think it was 46,000. He's estimating that we'll be about 46,000 in the black.
Yeah, so I think when we had the budget meeting, we were looking to overexpend from get permission from DRA to overexpend.
For the vehicle stuff?
Yeah, we were looking at, if everything was going the way it was going, we were going to be about 20 grand in the red.
Yeah.
Well, through conservative measures, cutting out things, not doing certain things, just doing what we needed to do to get through the year, not doing the bathroom, not doing training,
The shower.
things
yeah.
like that. We're probably going to be, you know, right now it's around $40,000, but there's a couple things still out there. So I'm going to say we're going to be in the black by $30,000+ at the end of the when we close the books at the end of the month, around the end of the month. And on the apparatus and equipment side, we're returning somewhere around $50,000 back to the apparatus and equipment fund that we didn't spend.
Anybody else?
I had a few more things.
About the 4 new employees?
Yeah, I mean, Jason kind of hit on, you know, some of the things, but the goal of the commissioners is to create a committee that will help determine what happens at the end of this. Because in previous grants to this, we were obligated to keep all these new hires on the payroll, if you will, on staff. Now, we have this, the way it's been written, it's not, we don't have to have all 4. We don't have to keep all 4 at the end. We made this, hopefully the idea of this committee is that we're going to be able to look at the numbers and determine maybe we only need 2, maybe we need 1, maybe we need 3. We don't know. We know that there's a certain period of time during the day that is very difficult for us to get the second ambulance, the district to get the second ambulance out. This past month, in the month of December, there were, I think it was 10 calls where we were not able to get our ambulance out.
No, we weren't able to get a single person to call. That's why the ambulance.
There were 10 calls that we weren't able to get anyone out. We had to rely on mutual aid.
10 out of how many?
180,
180.
181.
What is that percentage-wise?
Well, there was
7 or 8.
I don't know what the percentage of that is, but normally 20 to 25% of all our calls are simultaneous calls, and that's where we have the problem. So, of those simultaneous calls, last month we had, I don't have all that stuff, around 40-something simultaneous calls. I think 47. We were able to put somebody on scene for 37 of those. The other calls, you know, when we have single calls, we don't have a problem managing that. It's when we have multiple calls.
Which is the vast majority of the time.
It's about 75% of the time, as we have one call by itself.
But keep in mind that with this grant, that someone independent of the towns of Northfield and the towns of Tilton looked at the data and said they need help.
All right, so I have a question that you made me think of is, okay, so it's to hire 4 people, and then there's prior grants, you don't have to keep them, or that you had to, and this one you don't after 3 years. What happens when, in the course of the 3 years, through attrition, or if you get somebody that's a non-performer and you gotta let them go, what does the grant say about that? Are you allowed some float, or do you have to
So
immediate?
the difference between this grant and previous grants of the same kind, this one, they eliminated the match over the 3 years. So it originally was, they paid 75% for the first year, 65% for the second year, and 35% for the third year. And then the local community matched the difference.
Yeah.
This year, it's 100%, 100%, 100% of the first year cost of the firefighter for all 3 years.
Yeah.
So first year cost is pretty much all covered except for turnout gear and uniforms and a medical background exam. Other than that, everything else is covered. Second year, and we'll end up with a surplus of the first year, if you break it down evenly into 3 years, what that grant is worth. We'll have a surplus in the first year. The second year, we'll probably have a surplus or break even. The third year is where it really will cost, may cost us money. And that all depends upon what type of health insurance they get.
Sure.
Because they give you an allowance for health insurance, which is the
Average of the 3 plans. Yep, we got into
of the
that.
3
Yep.
plans. The second thing that changed in this grant is that after the 3 years are over, you don't have to keep anybody, whereas before you had to keep them. That was they wanted a letter from the governing body saying, after the 3 years is over, you're going to keep these folks on.
Right.
Or apply for another grant to keep them on. And sometimes they got grants to keep them on, sometimes didn't, and people were laid off. One of the conditions of this grant, which hasn't changed from previous grants, is that if we have to let somebody go because they're underperforming or somebody retires, we do have to replace them. Because the purpose of this grant is to make sure we have 4 people on duty 24/7.
Right. So with that, if there's a gap because somebody left or you had to let somebody go, and it takes time to rehire somebody and get somebody in, now are we on the hook to spend overtime to put a 4th person in the truck?
Yes.
And the grant's not going to cover that.
That's correct.
So in the normal course of hiring and firing and human resources and all that, this overtime number could be totally irrelevant if you now are beholden to have 4 people on a shift, regardless of whether they were a new hire or not. Right?
So
They're not going to give you any float saying, well, geez, we just let somebody go, and we're in the middle of hiring somebody. They're going to insist that you have 4 people on, regardless.
you would have to, if you didn't, you could have to beg for forgiveness.
Yeah. Okay.
I
I don't know if that presents risk or not.
But through our hiring process, we have a list of available candidates currently. So if someone left tomorrow, we have another person on the list that we would hire, and the time frame for that would be a physical and background check.
Yeah.
These grants are recurring, correct?
They come out
They were around last year,
in the year before, and
the year before, the year
Every year they have it. this
so
grant
they'll be
opportunity.
around again.
Yes.
That being the case, why would you not give the governing body the opportunity to have to say? Why would you, especially given the fact that you very clearly told no new people at the 2020 district meeting, why would you seemingly go around people and say, this is what we're gonna do? That puts the people at the next annual meeting in a bind because nobody wants to say no after the fact.
So, when this grant was written, there's a 1 month period, a 1 month window every year for the grant. And there's a start date and there's an end date of the application period. You only have that 1 month with which you can file the grant for the whole year.
That's right, but you could garner support at this
Yeah.
district meeting.
You have 11 months to talk to people.
And then you
about
got
it.
the entire
So-
next year when that month comes.
We would have had that, that wouldn't have been a problem, except last year we delayed our district meeting to a point where it got past the grant application period and the grant was ready to go.
And you may have to do that again.
I don't, well, as it stands right now, the commissioners have approved the grant and accepted it. We've accepted it with FEMA. That's where we are right now. We've screened all the personnel, we did conditional offering of employment.
All without the backing of the legislative body,
That's correct.
which to me is taking your thumb and sticking it right on your nose and saying, screw you.
Well, before the commissioners accepted this, there was a public hearing and there was much debate and discussion about this.
That's correct, but the debate at the district meeting was greater than the public hearing.
The debate, we didn't have this specific debate at the district hearing.
You were told no people.
No, we were told there was no, they didn't want to fund it. And
That's right.
at the time, we were requesting 2 additional people.
That's right.
That would
They
have been
said
part
no
of
to
the,
2.
that would have been part of the budget, and that we would have support fully through the tax base. This is very partially through the tax base because we have to pay for their uniforms and a physical.
But we're still paying.
All right, so this is kind of redundant, because
then-
that's behind us,
Yeah.
and here we're sitting here. And, you know, the other part of this that bothers me is even though the grant's going to pay for it this year, we're still gonna have to raise and appropriate it.
But it's not gonna cover it.
Not all of it,
No, that's what,
but even, I came up with $9,000 that the grant isn't gonna cover in this budget. So there's a significant, you know, over $300,000, we're raising and appropriating $353,519.67 for these new hires.
Not through the tax, that's not based on the taxes though, because it's
Yes, it
reimbursed.
is. If it is in this budget,
Well, if you
if
look-
it's in this budget that we approve, even though you're getting the revenue in, it's gonna be raised and appropriated. And then you will receive grant money, which will offset it.
It'll offset the tax too. The,
The tax rate is gonna be based on this budget.
in the
the
bottom line of the
revenues.
budget, you'll see that there's a line in this budget where the $300 and something thousand for the grant is subtracted from what is taxed to the tax base. So the revenue,
The grant money is going to be in the revenues.
On
yes,
page 1.
Right. Right. But you're still gonna raise and appropriate.
well, that's the way the law is, you have to raise.
That's
and
exactly right.
May I say something?
Sure.
The tax rate isn't set until the fall.
I'm sorry.
The tax rate is not set until the fall,
Until October, that's correct.
until October. So for September 1st, we have to submit a revised estimate of revenues to the IRA.
Uh-huh.
And that's where they will subtract out any revenues that have come in against our tax rate. So yes, you're right, at district meeting, we raise and appropriate, but come September, we're backing all that out because we've received the revenue.
Right, and revenues are mostly projected figures. we do the best we can to come up with projected revenues. You could come to the fall, and some of those revenue numbers could change, and especially with COVID, things have gotten really squirrely. Anyway, it's just me. Scott and Charles, we haven't heard from you. Do you have anything you want to input on this conversation?
Well, I started with Catherine's idea of separating the grant from the budget process. Now, for the first time in 5 weeks or whatever, we have Mike. So what does Mike think of that idea?
Go ahead.
I think at this point, right now, it would be complicated, it's complicating our process. But if that's the direction that they want to go, we can dig out the numbers and make it a separate warrant article if that's what the commissioners want to do. I don't really do the warrant articles. But still at the same time, those folks are going to be on board.
All right, so all the payroll, including the new hires, is in there. But on page 1 is this $8,000 from the grant.
Yes.
That's paying mostly for the new hires. So I'm okay with leaving it as we see it on this latest itemized proposed budget. And anyone can see that we're not just spending an extra $300,000 on employees without getting $8,000 from the grant. So this is a good way to show it. The gross payroll against, now we get an extra $300,000 on the grant. So that's where I think.
Jane?
I'm curious to see what Eric has to say as a commissioner.
Well, we haven't heard from Scott either.
Well, I had thought earlier that I didn't know if it was possible on the 4 lines here, put it, or whatever, 4 lines, 5 lines, add an extra line to show what the grant is covering. So it doesn't look like we have a 800 or whatever the math is from 855,000, which was appropriated in 2020, to over $1 million in 2021, to show that grant.
But the public does not see this sheet.
Isn't the budget published in?
The budget, it's the 535 from DRA. They do not see your worksheets.
Don't they see the budget though?
It's the budget
Not
is
in
the
this meeting.
535.
No, but at district meeting, isn't there a copy of this budget available for
That's
people?
up to the commissioners.
It's the MS 535 that they've been seeing.
Okay.
They could see it.
Yes, they could.
Well, I think it's important to have something explaining how the grant is contributing. I don't know if I'm making sense with that. It's showing what, okay, our payroll is $1,089,000, but it's really, I'll just say 900. I don't know what the number is.
We could put a sheet out there.
I think it's imperative that we put something out so that people see what the grant is contributing.
You already have that.
But it needs to be at district meeting.
But what you received, breaking everything out, is what they were going to get at district meeting.
The sheet that you gave us at the last meeting with the red on
Yes.
the chief has in his hand right now.
Because that breaks out every portion of it.
Right.
Of the grant,
Right.
every
Yeah.
portion.
Yeah, I think that is important. That's gold because it needs to be, so people can see and understand.
Right, that is what you had talked about handing out at district meeting.
Right.
Because it shows, okay, this is what the salaries and wages are, this is the portion the grant's going to pay, and this is what it's going to cost the taxpayers.
So that's basically the kind of thing you're asking for, Catherine, isn't it?
Well, something, I mean, the other thing, and I was saving it for last to mention is that the budget committee could always recommend, you know, if there isn't sufficient conversation, we could recommend removing this amount from the budget. But, I mean, the first tax bill that's going to go out approximately in June is going to be based on the tax rate we have right now.
Correct.
This will really affect us in the fall, when Department of Revenue Administration gets our projected revenues. And they are gonna have this, and then they're gonna come up with a new tax rate. One thing I do know is that the taxpayers in the town of Tilton are going to have an interesting, a higher tax bill this year because of the new PD. And I know that the residents in the town of Northfield are gonna have higher tax bills because of the school district. Maybe not this year, but definitely next year. The state is not going to be paying out, as far as we know, the same amount of relief money.
Yeah, that's been decreasing yearly.
But
So,
it's gonna really decrease this year.
You know, I mean, speaking to the choir, but what we're doing here is work for the taxpayers. And it just, I don't want them to have to pay me a lot more. So what do you think, budget committee members? What do you want to do with this?
Scott, you haven't said anything. Do you have anything to say?
I mean, the only thing I'll add is I agree with what you guys are saying. I think we need to definitely put it separate so the public can see it, and I think that there needs to be a very good presentation as well at the district meeting. But I would say that I agree with Jason as well, that I think it's very reasonable that we should be able to cut at least the amount that this is going to cost outside of the grant. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Well,
Anybody else?
I'm with you.
Which part? I gave a couple of ideas.
I mean, one advantage, if we can call, I brought it up at the commissioners meeting the other day, is that February 1st, we know what insurance they're gonna require, because we can't ask that now.
Yeah.
And that's before the budget process is finalized. I believe it's before the budget process is finalized.
It's before your public hearing.
So we'll be able to identify if any other impact outside of uniforms and things like that is there, because we don't know we don't know if we, you know, what mix-up of the makeup of the insurance is gonna be.
Okay. So what's our public hearing date?
All right, the commissioners talked about that at their meeting the other night, and it is,
The 8th?
The 8th, which is a Monday night.
Can I just add the fact that I think it's really important, Chief, that you give a extremely detailed, good presentation, because I know what happened when people read it in the newspaper. I still remember that day. It looked as though that people had been misled. And if you can go into real detail, I think it's going to make it easier for you.
Sure.
Because that's how it looked. I mean, and the reaction, I remember it well, was that's a slap in the face to the taxpayer.
And I did not release that to the paper either.
Well, it should have been knowledge. Well, with knowledge, I'm not saying that it should have been.
So the commissioners knew about it,
Well,
and I
yeah,
understand.
the taxpayers did until they read the
Probably
paper.
not, because
And the budget committee did
because
until they
nobody,
read the paper.
nobody comes to any of our meetings.
So the
Right,
budget-
I'm with you, Jane. I was a little disappointed that we could pull everybody together to ask for $20,000 to fix the trucks,
Yeah.
but we couldn't bring this team together to have a conversation about $1 million.
And we worked long and hard on that. And
Yeah, even if it was
Yeah.
like, you know, not that we're not the say, you know, we're not the authority and we're not the one that signs it or applies or accepts it, but that kind of blew right by and really, you know, we're pulling us together to ask for truck money, but not a big,
Big chunk of change.
yeah.
So February 8th is the public hearing.
Right. We don't know where yet.
And we take input at that point, we can still change this budget.
You can, but I will have the information on the health insurance within a couple of weeks, because they have to fill out the paperwork and everything for that.
Okay.
So I would recommend that you meet prior to February 8th to go over all of that.
Okay,
So for the public hearings, your ducks are all in a row.
okay, but I'm still saying, so. February 8th, public hearing, gather information from the public on the budget, and, you know, if somebody is right, we can change that amount, and if we want to go back to this and do something, then we can. So all I'm saying is we've got a lot of information on this grant stuff. We don't have to make the decision tonight, but I'd like everybody to think about how you want to move on this. One question I have, Chief, is we take this money, if we took this money out of the budget, out of your operating budget, it sounds to me as though, and maybe this is for you too, Eric, as a commissioner, that you would still go forward with those hires.
That's the plan right now, unless the commissioners instruct me to do otherwise.
And then you'd have to put the money back into the budget at the district meeting.
Yeah.
Or keep your fingers crossed that you know, when the grant comes in.
Either that or the money has to go back to the federal government.
Well, they haven't given us a penny yet.
Okay.
Right.
So it's,
I was just curious. Okay, all right, I won't belabor it. I just wanted you to know where I was at. So, how do you want to proceed? Page 5, salaries and wages. Looks like we managed to approve 215,000 of it. Do you want to leave that alone for now?
I think I'm not sure if it was a timing thing or if we wanted to wait till the chief was back, but if somebody said we should kind of hold off on having the discussion about the COLA and the step and all that, I think somebody asked for some time to review and to dig into
All right, then maybe,
the salary increase, regardless of the hiring situation, is just as to,
all right, because you wanted to talk about the overtime anyway.
sure, and
Is that all right, everybody, if we
yeah,
segue into that?
all right, so how I go about finding the number for overtime is a multi-step process. First thing I have to do is look at what the employees are going to be able to get in vacation time and hours, what they will receive in sick personal time. We also have a floating holiday that they can take whenever they want, which requires us to bill for overtime for that. Then there's the required training that the fire department requires that everybody take every year. And so the variables are vacation time, the floating time, training time, and then for the sick and personal time, what I do is I take a 3-year average of the previous 3 years and come up with an average number of hours that brings me to a total number of hours that I'm requesting for overtime. It's not the total liability that we have. And when I did the worksheet for this year, our overtime liability is 8,528 hours, which would equate to $311,272. But since I'm using an average of the last 3 years' sick leave, that brings it down to 6,254 hours, which brings me to $237,652. I know there's a small discretion of what the commissioners approved and what my number is, but that's the crux of it. And so for required training hours, everybody has to do CPR. We have EMS, quality assurance, quality improvement hours, advanced EMT refreshers, paramedic refreshers. We do RSI, so we have RSI provider requirements, RSI assistant requirements. There's also quarterly paramedic training, regional paramedic training. Everybody has to get the SCBA fit test. For those that are certified in swift water, we have to make sure that they get their training. Everybody gets a physical, that requires overtime. There's officer meetings. We have technicians that install child and baby seats, they have to be trained. We also have folks that are certified in confined space, trench rescue, rope and high angle rescue. We have Monday night trainings where we train usually our call company, and sometimes we bring in outside trainers, we have to pay for that. We schedule for live burning, similar to what you saw next to AutoServe with a lot of planners going. And then we also offer our employees the opportunity to go for outside training, which was cut out this year because of COVID. And when you add all that up, that's 2,432 hours for next year of training that goes into this work week. And that's where I come to that number, and that's where I come to the number that it cost us for overtime. And that's hoping that we don't have a lot of people that are out sick that exceeds what our 3-year average.
So I guess
That's the question, sorry, is, I guess the question is how did we get overspent? What happened in 2020? Because it appears we went over by about 11 grand.
Yeah, so we...
was it one thing or was it a lot of things?
There's two things.
All right.
So we had a couple of babies born that we have family medical leave where people take additional time other than normal sick time.
Yep.
We had an employee leave for personal reasons that we had to fill with overtime for an extended period of time because
Gotcha.
we didn't have a list
Yep.
ready. So those few things, and then we had some COVID stuff where
Yeah.
people had to
Quarantine out and stuff.
quarantine out, but that should have been covered. But
Yeah.
So you've got 4 new people that,
There's no baseline data for what.
seemingly could cover some of these quote-unquote required overtime, which I think most of what you outline is a matter of policy. Someone decided that we're gonna do this, and we're gonna pay overtime to do it.
yeah, so
And also, are you telling us that none of that stuff you just read off can be done while someone's on shift?
So most of it you can't. And if we have somebody on shift, we usually cover them with overtime so they can do their training without having to go on a call. So if we're doing swift water training and you're in the river and you're on duty, we're not expecting you, while you're in the river, to get out of the river, take off all the stuff, put your uniform back on, get in the ambulance or the engine and go to a call. It just can't be that way. Same with confined space training, where you're down in a hole, all roped up with your harness on, your SCBA on, or whatever you need, trying to rescue somebody 20 feet down below the ground. It's impossible to be on duty and handling calls at the same time while you're getting this training. And the reason we have this training is because we don't have that many of these events, but they're very high-risk events. Low-frequency, high-risk events means that if you're not very good at it, if you do get it when it does happen, you're likely to have a terrible outcome. And when you have these low-frequency, high-risk events, you want to have a positive outcome. So that's why we have to train on these low-frequency, high-risk events. Otherwise, we're not going to do it.
So what is the role in these 4 new people in reducing overtime?
They don't have a role in reducing overtime.
I thought you said they would increase the overtime.
Why do they not have a role?
Because we have 4 people on duty with the new people. The overtime, if any one of those 4 are out, we still have to fill it with overtime. Because one of the conditions of the grant is that we have 4 people on duty 24/7.
Which is probably the biggest reason that you should have said no to the grant.
No, it's the biggest reason we said yes for the grant, because
So
now,
we require our budget to go up?
it doesn't require our budget to go up, other than to cover for the uniforms and physicals.
That's up.
And overtime.
It doesn't, see, that new people do not generate a whole lot of overtime. And the overtime that they do generate is covered in the grant.
But they could be used to reduce overtime.
They can't be used to reduce overtime.
Why not?
Because,
So let me tell you where I'm at. So they're training, they're getting paid overtime while they're training. I get it, but they're actually on duty. If we're paying them, they're on duty. And they happen to be getting overtime on duty, training. So it's a scheduling. You have a training coming up. Instead of having 3 or 4 people, you have, because I'm sure these trainings are planned, you have another person on. Now the person in training is not getting paid overtime. They're still on duty, but they're not getting paid overtime because you have this person filling the slot that's necessary so this person doesn't have to get out of the hole of the water. These 4 personnel, new personnel, are more bodies to stick in that slot, working regular time out there, so that this person training isn't getting paid overtime to train, on duty. If we had an emergency, you know, I remember when the tanker truck rolled over down there at the exit, let's say it blew up. I guess the fellow's gonna come out of the water or out of the hole or whatever he's training.
eventually, yes, but so they're not gonna have a timely response.
But nevertheless, you're gonna need all hands on deck. So my point is, it's scheduling.
So,
The trainings are planned. So, and I'm sure it's more than weeks in advance. I mean, I'm sure you probably know when some training's gonna take place in April of this year.
You may not have enough hours available if you take the head count, times the hours, times the shifts.
I know that we had a similar problem with the police department. And we asked the chief to look at his scheduling. And he did, and it reduced the overtime.
so when we have, say, a swift water training or a confined space, or any of these trainings, we have them on multiple days so that we don't have to hire, it is to reduce the overtime for these trainings. If we had the training all on one day, it would, first of all, we wouldn't be able to train everybody because we wouldn't expect everybody to be in the water at the same time, for example. We space it out over 4 days. Same with the confined space. It's over 4 days. So there's only, it is a scheduling thing. And the way we schedule it is to make it the least impactful as possible.
And I'm not suggesting that all your training could be done with regular time. I do recognize this from what you just said, and what Jason had said, you are gonna have to use some overtime for training. But I think you can reduce some of it by scheduling.
Well, I'd be happy to sit down with you and go over how it is exactly done so that I can show you here.
Now, it's not just me,
Yeah.
we're a group. But anyway, Jane, do you have anything to say about it? Scott? Charles, do you have anything to say about overtime?
I have one thing to say, back to the line 4220, that's 111 overtime. This 244,000 that Mike asked for, and 236 that the commissioners approved, that includes the overtime for the 4 new grant people, which is going to be paid for by the grant. So I can't tell the exact amount from the Safer Grant worksheet, but there's some amount. Maybe Mike can figure it out, how he figured that. That would be due to the new grant firefighters.
That was not figured.
No, it's about 48 hours, I think.
The 48 hours is how many dollars?
I'll have to get back to you.
Those are overtime hours, 48 overtime hours?
I don't know.
The red part of the Safer Grant breakdown for salaries and it just says grant funded salaries for 4 employees in red is 172. So that includes wages and overtime.
No, that does not include any overtime. That is strictly straight time.
Oh. Okay, gotcha.
So I guess my question for the budget committee members is, do you want to reconsider the 215,000 for overtime that we voted on and approved?
So I have a question for Mike. So we kind of negotiated at 215,000. I think Eric started that because it was much lower, of course. So what does that 215,000 do to you in running the company? If we said 215 and that's it.
Well, if that's it, I would probably look to try and limit some certain overtime hours that in the training area. Like I would reduce the amount of outside training, probably, that would be allowed to some of these folks to make up the difference. I would have to manage it somehow, and I would. I always do. But it's to the detriment of the training, to the training that we provide our employees.
There is
Due to
no,
COVID, training, and due to fire trucks, training was anemic in 2020, right?
It was very anemic.
So that's bad for 1 year, but the more years you do that, then it's bad for everybody.
but the bottom line is, there is no 215 and that's it. Because it's a bottom line budget, and they can move money wherever they want to.
That's correct.
So to say that
That's correct.
any particular line has definitive ramifications is not accurate.
Right, because last year it was 203 and that's it.
Yeah.
And it came in at 214 because things
So-
happen.
So
and you gotta be
there's
able
no,
to-
Well, we start the year off with a budget prediction, this sheet that we all have in front of us, and that's how we pretty much think the year's going to go. We pretty much follow it as much as we can until we start running into problems. Then we start shuffling. Well, we can't do this, so we have to move this money from here, and we're not going to do that. Or we think we're going to be 20 grand in the red, so we're definitely not doing this, and we're not going to get this accomplished. This is
It's a breathing, living document.
it is, and
And an ugly
the
one.
commissioners hold me very much accountable to the line items even, as every month we meet. Why is this line item under, or why is this line item over where it should be? Well, if it's over, where did you get the money from? What line did you take it from?
Right.
You know, I'm held to that standard of accountability, which I should be, and I explain it all. But at the end of the year, we're always, except for that 1 year, when my first year here, we've been all in the black. And I've been managing, I think I do a very good job of managing the budget. No matter what the number is that I get, I manage it.
All right, so do we want to, salaries and
Like
wages?
2 questions,
Oh.
real quick.
Okay,
Sorry about that. Chief, as far as the overtime goes, I know there's money available through Gopher and FEMA reimbursements for COVID time. Have you received or are you planning to receive any of that for anybody that's out for a COVID-related issue?
So, since we are a fire district and not a community, we are not eligible for Gopher funds. And FEMA, we received a grant, the COVID grant, we received 9,000 and change on the first one, and I applied for the second one, but I don't know what the outcome of that is at this time.
My understanding is that the FEMA grant now has changed a little bit, and they are doing up to 70% potentially reimbursements for COVID expenses. Is that something that you've looked into yet?
So the first one, we did get, and that was over, I believe that was 95% we recovered on that, and we had a 5% match. The second one for Tilton Northfield Fire District is another 95% with a 5% match from the district, which I think is somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 for COVID expenses. But again, I haven't heard on the outcome of that grant yet.
Have you, commissioners, considered talking with your Tilton Selectmen, your counterpart, the Tilton Selectmen, about applying for those monies?
I just became aware of it, and there hasn't been any grant.
I'm thinking of talking to, talk with Tim about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, but what I'm saying, there hasn't been like a,
No, but there could be, so.
in the
we'd be
future, when
ready
it comes
for
up, yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's in mind,
Sounds like we were thinking of the same thing.
yeah, just,
All right, do you want to move past this until we have more information on the medical and the actual costs before we,
That has nothing to do with salaries and wages.
no?
No, not at all.
Okay. So, trying to move past this page, budget committee members.
If I could maybe help things a little. So if you want to go under the salaries, the 110 career salaries and wages, I requested $1.1 million. The commissioners approved 1.089, and that's because what I requested, do you see it, Catherine?
Page 5?
Yes.
Page 5,
You said how much?
I requested 1.127844.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So what I requested was a COLA and a step increase and an adjustment to our starting pay. The commissioners approved the 2.5% salary increase for a step raise, actually, not even so everybody except new employees will be getting a 2.5% step raise, and that's where they came with the 1.089 figure.
Thank you. I think we got that information. All right. Career salaries and wages.
just call, so. Are you looking at the bottom line of that?
No, I'm looking at career salary and wages.
Oh,
I
sorry.
want to move on, so we're gonna do this line by line. Make a motion to approve the commissioners 1.089382. Or not 1,089,382.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion.
Even that is up.
Oh, it has the,
Over $100,000 from 2020.
it has the four,
Has
Because it
the,
has the
it
new
has
items
the
in
four
it
in it.
being offset by the revenue of the grant.
I just want us to get through this budget. I mean, we can, you know, before the public hearing, we can still make changes to this. But I want to get through this budget.
Just speaking for myself, I'd be more amenable to, if we're gonna change the face of the district by bringing in 4 new hires, that we look to level fund
I mean, we've had last year, you know, guys from the team come and sit with us and say how, you know, they really wanted to make a plea for, you know, to get the new help, and we were looking at just the two. And they, you know, thought it was really, really important. Well, is it important enough that they'd take a pass on a step? Would they rather get the help, or would they rather have the 2.5? You know, I mean, what's their skin in the game of putting their money where the mouth is? If they say, hey, listen, you know, we like what we do, and we just want to, we'd be okay being level funded. You know, I'd be more agreeable bringing staff on if this is one of the ways that we go to the voting body and say, you know what, we just level funded payroll for the year.
So,
And
up.
also
so
keep in mind
all
that-
the folks here that are doing the work every single day, going to all these calls, you're gonna, because we got a grant and are allowing us to get 4 additional people, you wanna say, but we don't wanna give you a 2.5% raise this year.
But you gotta remember, they also got $300 a week for how long?
Okay,
So another thing you need to keep in mind.
Which was reimbursed by the state,
Where's the state get their money?
the feds,
And where do they get their money?
from all of us.
That's correct, it's all our money. So also keep in mind, the way things are,
We didn't ask for that
Relative to
$300 either, though.
okay,
no, but
so
you took it even before you had it to spend.
let's,
So,
let's,
wait a minute, let me speak. You also got to keep in mind that all this money comes from the taxpayers. And there are people who are already struggling to pay their tax bill, and 2021 is not going to be any better. We did okay collecting money in July and December tax bill wise, but in 21, I believe we're going to have to borrow more money than we ever have to make ends meet. So I don't think it's asking too much for people who have skin in the game to maybe take a bit of a pass on something we've always done, because we've always given raises, always.
And, hey, 4 guys on a crew is or four staff on a crew, maybe it's 4 people pulling hose instead of 3 or 2, and maybe the workload's a little easier, maybe the things go a little better. 'Cause
Just
there's
means that
help.
more work gets done, not less work, but done by each individual.
Well, I know we had the numbers of call data or hours worked per person, or the penetration of how much workload is experienced versus in this district versus other departments, and you know, our team has been asked to and has delivered a lot more workload per capita than our neighbors, right? That I know you had that penetration number. So getting them some help, putting a 4th person on, maybe that.
It's not, you're not getting the other employees help by hiring these 4 additional people. What we're doing is be able to provide a better service to the community. We're gonna be able to get that second ambulance out the door more often than not than we are now. And also, we'll be able to collect more revenue because we're giving it away to other communities by using mutual aid ambulance stuff. I know
but
that's a
that
separate thing.
information would have been nice to have before here. So the legislative, that's part of what I was saying before, the legislative body should have been able to hear, this can be offset because this ambulance is gonna be out, and this is what we're projecting revenue. We don't have that. So look, let's focus on this.
The revenue,
We're talking about whether we want to have raises for our current personnel or not. So my opinion is, we have highly trained staff, we're lucky enough to have employees in the fire district that have been there for a while. It's hard out there, we've just said that. Property taxes go up, cost of living goes up. I really don't want to reward those people that have stuck with us, that are trained, that if I have an emergency, my life's gonna depend on, and say, you know what? I don't think you're worth a raise, because most of the people out there in the world are getting raises. State employees, federal employees,
I'll address that state employee comment in a minute.
and, you know, a lot of people are gonna get a raise. It may not be 2.5%, but they're gonna get something. I just think they're worth it.
All right, let me give you some enlightenment on how the state payroll system works. Within a labor grade, there's 9 steps. You don't get a raise every time you move up. You don't get a raise every year. You're in, I got hired in the middle of the steps in my particular labor grade, and I have not gotten any step increase or merit increase or any increase for 3 years that I've been working for the state of New Hampshire, because I am at some years you get it, some years you don't, and I happen to be at a level 4 or 5, and there's a plateau. And Kevin's remark, well, there's always been raises and everybody always gets a raise. It doesn't happen that way in state employment. And that's a system that was actually put together through collective bargaining, believe it or not. And some years there's COLAs and some years there isn't. And, you know, some years you get it and some years you tighten your belt. And some years your bills go up and your payroll doesn't. So that's the world that most of our taxpayers are living in, is not everybody always gets. So, and I agree, this COVID thing has put some people out of work, and there's some challenges or there will be challenges collecting revenue, but.
Anyway, so there's a motion on the table. Any more discussion? Scott?
Yeah.
Charles?
I have a question. So the commissioners included a step of 2.5%
Eric?
Yes. Yes.
and no COLA.
No COLA.
Is it a merit or an automatic?
Okay.
I believe it's
That's my question. I'm ready to vote.
I believe it's automatic. Yeah.
So
It
there's,
doesn't happen every year though.
there's a 20, the commissioners, prior to my arrival, approved a wage and step scale program, and in between each step is 2.5%.
The chief presented to us this year a COLA, a step, and also
Increase the
starting our, I think it was by 2.5%,
Yeah.
increasing our base pay by 2.5%, and the commissioners only approved a step of 2.5.
Okay, all right, let's vote. Roll call vote, please. Jason?
Can you repeat the motion?
The motion is to approve the $1,089,382 for career salary and wages, the commissioners.
Jason Wright, no.
Kevin?
No,
Yes.
Eric?
Eric Pyrie, yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Scott, yes.
Dawson, yes. Oh, thank God, moved. Removed. Holiday pay.
what happened to my motion to approve everything up to the apparatus improvement fund?
I guess
There was
that's,
no
I'd like to
separate.
have that conversation now, because my time's valuable, and if we're not gonna move the needle, that was the largest amount of opportunity to move the needle into affording some of these extra costs and taking on this grant, and if we're not gonna have an impact, and if we're just gonna pencil whip every line and not add any value back to the taxpayer, my personal time is valuable in this committee, and if we're just gonna 4-2 everything with a rubber stamp, then I think we ought to entertain Kevin's idea.
So you're saying that you,
We're just,
whatever we decide tonight
we're
is
just not
it, the
gonna-
budget's approved and we don't have any more work to do.
and take it to the voting body, because we can get more
Well,
done
okay.
at the district meeting.
And did you just, Dennis, give a second to your motion? So go ahead. If you wanna, okay, we've got this, before we move on, go ahead and make a motion, Kevin.
I already made the motion.
I know, but you're gonna have to repeat it now, we've had an awful lot of discussion.
I'm going to move to approve the budget in its entirety as printed, with the exception of the apparatus equipment fund budget.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, discussion. Which budget amount? We have the chief's budget amount, commissioner's budget amount, or what amount?
Commissioner's budget amount.
We made adjustments to the commissioners, so for instance, in overtime. Right, so we made now we got an adjusted commissioner's budget.
Well, I'll just say there are things that I was looking at to talk about coming up to potentially reduce in a few places, so I'd like the opportunity to get to it.
Okay, so you're looking at, and I'm on page 1, the 2,694,97. I'm not used to this format.
Page 9.
Yep. Same amount. So on page 9,
Looks like it's two.
one is with the grant, one is without. Right?
The 2694 number is the commissioners voted, then we're gonna get the SAFER grant funding. The number underneath that is the number, the 2694 number minus the SAFER grant.
The number would be 2355894, right?
You're
That-
not gonna include the grant?
that-
So, on page 9, the 2694097, which is the number I read off, is the operating budget with the grant.
That is correct.
The 2355894 is the operating budget without the grant.
Correct.
So Kevin, which one do you want to go with?
Two, 2355894.
Charles Scott, did you hear that?
What was that number?
So Kevin's motion is to approve on page 9, the operating budget total minus the SAFER grant under the commissioner's budget line, which is $2,355,894.
Okay, I understand. So I have discussion.
Okay?
Was there a second?
Huh?
Repeating what I just said, in that, what about things we already adjusted, like, well, we don't have the not the moderator, but somebody else should only get $50 less, or $250 less or something.
It was the clerk.
This is the clerk, right? Clerk should get $500 less.
So this budget that,
Legal expenses should only be $1,500. I'm looking at good highlights here from Kathy.
I thought you put all the
Overtime was
changes.
$215.
Oh, yes, but you wanted me to highlight them.
Yeah. So this budget should reflect all of the decisions we made previous to this meeting.
But not in the commissioner.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's
That was
not-
like,
Oh, it's not in the, you're right,
Sorry,
it's not in the commissioners, Jason corrected me.
But to that point, the 2020 appropriated was 2,365,000, and the commissioner's number is 2,355,000. We may have done approximately $25,000-$30,000 worth of changes if we wanted, and then I'd like to hear what Scott has to say, but maybe we can knock 55,000 off that number and come in and say 2,300,000, make it happen, bottom line. And then it's not even, it's level funded or against our 2020 appropriation, and then we go to the vote bottom.
Well, right now, we have a motion on the table to approve that amount. So that's, anybody else have any discussion on that?
I'm confused.
The 2,355,000 is less than what you appropriated in 2020.
Right.
Right, he wants it to be even lesser.
Well, we made some changes
But let's,
that would bring that,
but again,
yeah.
right now, the motion is for this amount, period. Okay?
All right.
Scott, you have some discussion?
No, I I mean, I think we've already covered this. I thought we already settled on the fact that it's really not our place to cut the Safer Grant money the last meeting. I think it's really up to the district is how I feel, but I don't think we should keep coming back to this because it does seem like we're kind of going around and around in a circle back to the same topic. But that's just my 2 cents.
Oh, I didn't look at it as cutting out the grant.
Yeah,
It is.
all right, so let's take a vote. Jason?
At this point, I'll say no on that number, because I'd like to give some other
Kevin?
opportunities.
Yes.
Jane?
No.
Eric?
Pyro, no.
Charles?
No.
Scott?
No.
And a no. Okay. I can't believe we haven't gotten past this.
I can.
Okay,
If we have some opportunities, can Scott take us where he wants to go and see if we can?
well, I suggested we skip right over this and deal with the salaries and wages, because we keep getting stuck here.
Right.
Let's just turn the page, or
If we could take categories too, and then if somebody wants to
Right.
talk about something within a category, we can
that's,
stop.
yeah. So if we turn the page, of course, we're also skipping school training and fees. But I'd like to
Okay.
turn the page, we can come back to those two. Kathy, you'll remember that we did that, didn't we?
I will, and also for the next one, I'm hoping to have the health insurance adjustment.
Okay, and go to telephone. Anybody? Both the commissioner and the chief, I don't have to read it to you, you can see it. Anybody have some issues with those numbers?
Ready for a motion? Approved 7862 number for 341 telephone.
Okay, no second, so
Fire
let me make a
second.
suggestion.
Fire second.
Let me make a suggestion, I was making my suggestion before you made the second. Rather than doing it that way, can we go right down to the bottom, total information technology and deal with, so one
That's a separate-
motion would take care of that whole kind of section?
That's a separate
No,
section.
That's a separate
That's a
section.
separate section.
Okay, all right, you got a second, I'm gonna give Eric your second. Any more discussion? Oh, okay. Let's go for a vote. Jason?
No.
Kevin?
No.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Pyro, yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Missed you up there. Charles?
Yes.
I'm a yes. All right, information technology. And again, let's vote, try to vote on the bottom line of that section, not on each one. Anybody have any questions? Any,
Does Mike have any comment on this section?
I don't really, unless you have any specific questions. I can tell you what every single thing really is, if you like, or explain what everything is.
oh, it's not, didn't we get that in the explanation?
It should-
Less than the 20 appropriated, less than the 20 actual. You know, a little over 19 actual, when we had all that new software come in.
In the server.
There was, if you look at the bottom, the grade area, there was $7,200 in 2020 that was budgeted for a server migration project.
Did that happen?
Yes.
That's pretty,
Yeah.
good. So that's done. So we don't have to do that again.
I put everything in the cloud, I believe.
Yes.
All right, that's my discussion.
Anyone else? Okay. Did anyone? Do we have a motion for the 25,954?
I'll move. So move.
Second.
That,
Discussion? Jason, let's vote.
No.
Kevin?
No.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes,
Scott?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Medical services. So I have a question. This includes 8 new employees.
Yes.
So there's 4 with
Plus-
a grant.
Plus, we look to, during the year, we try to hire additional fall firefighters, and they have to go through this exam as well, so that's why we got 8.
So my question is, you right off the bat plan on hiring 4?
But we hope to hire 4. We may not.
Have we lost any?
We've lost quite a few, yes. We're down to about 10 fall people right now.
Out of those 10, and I'm sorry, this is gonna take a little bit of time just so I can understand this. I don't know a lot about fire stuff. When a call goes out, what determines whether these call firefighters are needed?
For any call that we have, we allow any call firefighter to come in. That's kind of an incentive to try and keep them, because when they come in, they can earn some
And all
money.
10 of them could come?
All 10 of them could. Doesn't happen.
You're lucky to have 1, right?
The case is,
What is the average?
well, it depends upon what time of day it is. So from like 4:30, 5 o'clock to about 8 o'clock, if we get a call, we'll probably get 3 or 4 call people show up.
Okay.
The rest of the time, unless it's a building fire, hardly anybody shows up.
I'm lucky to get 1.
So then my question is, and I guess that's because they have another main job out there. This
That's
is not
correct.
their. Why do we need more if the ones we have don't show up? What's going to incentivize them? They already have a full-time job.
When I arrived here, we had a call force of about almost 30 folks. We're down to about 10.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
Quick question, Chief, did the cost go up per physical? I noticed that it went up $1,600 for the full-timers. Is that just average cost of the Concord's program? Or?
So the reason it went up is that we added, this usually only have like 4 new employees for call folks for physicals. This year it's 8 because of the 4 additional new safer employees. So that's one of the reasons it went up. A new employee costs more than an established employee because we do a little bit more testing on new employees. And every once in a while, well, like every 5 years, you have to get a chest x-ray and things like that. And those physicals end up costing a little bit more. But this is the way it breaks down over the course of a year generally.
Well, I guess I was looking at last year's appropriated was $9,600. This year we're looking at $11,200. Is that just assuming like a 3% raise for the program, or why would there be an increase?
No. 96.
And we only spent $1,500, so.
Yeah, so Concord, we didn't do our annual physicals this year. We're actually conducting them right now because they moved their OC health from Horse Pond to the hospital property because they didn't have a negative pressure room to do the pulmonary function tests, and so that kind of screwed us up.
All right, gotcha. But it's an annual thing.
It's an annual thing.
Gotcha, all right.
And I don't know this, that you guys might know. I know we talked about the potential $20,000, $30,000 surplus, and it sounds like the line item from last year is this, potentially almost $10,000 of that's going to be carried out this year. Is there any way we can carry that over into this year to reduce the budget, or is that not a possibility?
It's beyond
So right
that.
now,
It's too late.
That has to be done before the end of the year.
Okay.
Anyone else? Motion to approve $15,200 for total medical services.
Second.
Any more discussion? Let's vote. Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yep.
Jane? Eric?
Ira, yes.
Justin, yes. Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, moving right along. Other professional services, $1.
Just to keep the line open.
Looks like we haven't used it for a while. What are other professional services typically? To keep it open, what would that
It was
be?
the wage study that they did several years ago. It's been, there's been some other things that they have done. Not since 17 though. Remember that?
I know we've had some things in there here.
We have, yeah.
It's not every
It's
year.
that typical type
It's-
of,
Yeah,
It's a weird thing usually that we can't find a place to put it, so that's where it ends up. We have to hire somebody to do something.
we really have to vote on $1. Okay,
it's, you don't have to, you can just,
The lump sum, we can lump 3 categories together, or? Here we go. I'll make a motion that we approve line 390, other professional services for $1, line 392, background checks for $520, and line 550, printing for $500.
And I'll second those.
any more discussion? Jason?
No.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Thank you, Eric. Dues and subscriptions. I thought I saw this in here.
not the page 7. Oh,
Oh, no, there's no explanation. No, I got the explanation, there's no explanation. Anybody have any questions on this?
I think we had this conversation
I
at
think we
the
did.
firehouse.
I think we did.
Why do we need to be members of the International Association of Fire Chiefs?
It's in my contract.
It's in your contract, too?
Yeah.
No, one. The other one is deputy.
So outside of that contract thing, which, why? International. Now, there's also a New Hampshire.
Also in my contract.
Okay, beside that, I mean, the contract is... So why?
Why is it in the contract, I guess? Why is it a good idea?
It's a good idea because they're both great resources for education of chief officers and others wanting to become officers. Their websites are fairly open. If you guys want to research them and look at them, you would see all the opportunities for education within those websites, and that's where I get a lot of my stuff.
Sort of like a doctor in the AMA.
Yes.
Anyone else? No? All right, motion to approve $4,581 for the total dues and subscriptions.
Second.
Any more discussion? Jason, let's vote.
I'm looking up the International Association of Fire Chiefs right now. So, I'm on hold.
EV time up.
All right, we can come back to you. Kevin?
No.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Ira, yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Dawson, yes. All right, it is in the contract. I have the contract here.
Right, but there's two memberships.
They can't share it?
The deputy.
And of course, the chief can't share with the deputy what he's
I don't
learned.
think it's a shared situation. Like I said, it's like the AMA, the doctor,
We're
you can
not
have two
doctors.
doctors in the AMA membership. It's not done that way, it's like the bar association.
Office supplies,
Where you carry a license as an attorney. It's not a.
So we share the NFPA. But the other ones are, we actually have voting privileges, and that's why they're separate. Office supplies. Sorry.
any concerns on office supplies or postage? No? Motion to approve total office supplies for $3,150 and postage for $500.
Second.
Okay. One more call for discussion? All right, let's vote. Jason?
No.
Kevin?
No.
Jane?
Yes,
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Dawson, yes. Equipment maintenance and repairs.
we're gonna do postage?
Those included.
Oh,
I
good.
included it. I
Oh,
followed
I'll
Eric's
make
lead.
change my vote now. I'm kidding.
So, Mike, any comment on your equipment maintenance and repairs?
So these are repairs that take place during the year for most of our equipment. I guess the big one in here is the Opticom repair for $6,000. The Opticom is the system that is the traffic preemption system, so when we're going down the street with our lights and sirens on, that we get the green light. There's 3 or 4 intersections within our response district that it's not working, and we had to have, the state used to repair, we'd pay for the parts and the state would pay the labor to do that. The state doesn't do that anymore, so now it's incumbent of us not only to buy the parts, now we have to hire a contractor to fix the preemption system. Of course, we're not the only ones that use the preemption system, the police use it as well. And so the $6,000 cost is the cost to repair the intersections minus the police detail that will be needed because these folks are in the middle of an intersection with a bucket truck and things like that. And so that's the big difference of what's from last year to this year. The others is self-explanatory unless somebody needs an explanation on a specific line.
I've got it, thanks.
Okay, I emailed a fellow state colleague at DOT, Bureau of Traffic, who claims ownership of these signals and ownership of the repair. Has Camden White reached out to you or the deputy?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'll follow up as
So
I'd like to get that
this
success.
is,
Has Camden White reached out to you about the Opticom?
Deputy Tim Ames.
Okay.
All right, I'll reiterate.
so this is not our equipment.
We don't own this equipment?
It's,
Right.
yeah, we actually do. We buy the equipment and we own the Opticom system. And in the past, we've always paid for the parts. This is,
We own what's on the trucks that activates it.
we own that as well. But the cards that are in the boxes, we own. The receivers, we own.
Why do we own those?
I don't know why we own them, but we do. We're responsible for keeping them working as well.
Under whose rule?
Well, if we don't keep them working, no one else can.
So even though All the police departments use them?
Yep.
Every private ambulance that comes through there uses it?
Yep.
And you expect us to pay the bill for their use?
So, yes, I do.
What's
Because-
happening right
because
now?
when we go, say we go to Laconia or Concord, we use theirs as well.
That's right. Who pays for theirs,
They do.
you think?
Well, I know Laconia and Concord.
So-
I don't know who pays for Laconia's, I do know who pays
So
for
what is
Concord.
the situation right now?
So right now, the intersection at 132 is messed up, the intersection at Clark Road is messed up, the intersection at Home Depot is messed up. Those three I know off the top of my head,
Okay, so how do you get through there?
carefully.
So who installed the Opticom system on Route 3?
So the
State
private,
of New Hampshire?
no, actually. So I'll give you an example. When the Taco Bell went in, they had to redo the intersection there where Home Depot is. Taco Bell paid for the preemption system. The state accepts it, and then it's our responsibility to keep it running, because the state doesn't care if it's up in there or not.
So it's not our responsibility to keep it running. We keep it running because, as you said, no one else will.
Right.
But there's a difference. There's no contract with the Tilton Northfield Fire District and EMS to keep those running.
No.
Whoever bends the first, I mean.
Whoever's the most willing to spend the money, and it's always us,
And it's a state road,
state
a
road.
town road, I'd say.
So if the red light doesn't work,
If the red light doesn't work, the state comes out and changes the light bulb.
so with the yellow and the
All of
green,
that.
and any other problem with that traffic signal, the state owns.
I'm gonna hit this guy on Monday and say, ask what's going on.
So for tonight, should we take out that 6,000 out of this and we can readdress
Well,
We
it?
can always put it back in.
Some of that's parts and some of it's labor.
Do you happen to know whether the state police can activate the preemption?
I don't know. Never.
It's that strobe light that flashes 14
Well,
times a second, right?
Some of them are strobe lights, some of them are infrared. Those ones you can't see, but it's the infrared light coming out of the strobe that actually activates the system. So there are some that are just infrared that you can't see at all that activate the system, and some of them have strobe lights that are emitting that infrared signal that activate it. So you might not know if they have one on or not, depending upon what type of system they're using in the vehicle.
So do you want to take this
So is there a
$6,000 out for
motion on the
tonight?
table?
I'm sorry,
Is there a motion on the table?
no.
Then I'll move $6,685 for line 630.
Second.
Any more discussion?
What was that figure?
They took out the 6,000 for the Opticon repair and the motion was for $6,685.
We can always put it back in.
Yeah,
We get better dialogue from the state.
Okay.
Any more? All right, let's vote. Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And Dawson's a yes. Okay, service testing. Wow.
So service testing is for all the testing we do on our equipment over the course of the year. And it's all itemized, as you can see.
Was it being appropriated elsewhere? Because we didn't have an appropriation for the better part of this page for 2020. Were we doing it in a different world?
No, 2020, it was bottom line. It was the budget committee last year just voted the bottom line and
All right.
didn't itemize
Kind of like
it.
you did the truck thing and you could divvy it up as,
Yeah.
all right.
Anything else? Discussion? Motion?
Make a
Motion?
motion to
Go ahead.
approve service testing for 18,879.
Second.
Any more discussion? Let's vote.
How much testing do we have to do on the copier to know that it works or doesn't work? What certifications do we
It's
require?
a service. So it's a contract we have.
That's what I
to take under.
Yeah.
It still works. They keep it working.
All right. Any more discussion? Questions? Let's vote. Jason?
No?
Kevin?
No.
Jane?
Yeah.
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Johnson, yes.
Just for the record, I'd be more supportive if we were falling in line to some of our previous year's expenses. We're not moving any of these numbers. We went from an appropriation of 13, spent 14, and now we're gonna appropriate 18. So, that's where I'm coming from. Without any dialogue.
So, I can explain some of that.
But it doesn't matter, Chief.
Yeah,
These
it's already
guys have already
voted on,
voted it,
so-
so it doesn't really matter,
Let's,
you know?
So we have gasoline and diesel?
We'll make a motion to approve 4,000.
How about the diesel?
There we go. Yeah, throw that in too.
There you go.
Second?
Second.
You don't get a discount for bundling.
Any more discussion?
I think,
So, yeah,
I think we're getting off cheap. I bet that's gonna go through the roof this year.
I do.
I agree with that. Okay. I'm just gonna-
Take a picture of the gas pump. Take a picture of the gas pump next
Yeah,
month.
it was my.
Take a picture on the
I
19th
appreciate
and take
it.
a picture on the 21st.
Yeah, and it'll be blurry because it's gonna be moving so fast.
Well, maybe
Actually,
it'll be
on my way down today, it was-
No.
Okay, any more discussion? Let's vote. Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Catherine, yes. Okay, vehicle repairs. Wow.
A brief description on this. So we see a vehicle number assigned to a dollar figure. That's everything that I know that we're going to do for that vehicle this year. Any repairs, service, maintenance, adjustments to it, it has a number. So 21A1, the ambulance, I know we're going to spend $3,655 on it.
Doing what?
General maintenance and repairs. So it's probably going to need, let me find that other spreadsheet. It's going to need tires, it needs probably 3 PMs, things like that, and that all adds up to this. Let me, I have a spreadsheet for that.
Is A1 the GM chassis or the Ford chassis?
A1 is the Ford chassis. So A1, $40 for an inspection, 3 PMs at $575 a piece, tires at $15.90, and the undercoating, I think we're using New Hampshire oil or something or whatever it is now.
What do you, 3 PM, preventative maintenance,
Brandon maintenance.
for $550?
It's the manufacturer specification. Whatever the manufacturer specifies on a PM, whether it's oil change, filters, whatever it is, we do it.
Any other questions?
I got a few real quick.
I do too. Go ahead.
So we're expected to get the new engine, Chief. When is that expected to come in? And is engine one completely going away when that happens?
Yes, engine one's going completely away, and I'm expecting, I talked to them today, they're thinking August, September, it should come in. It's gotta be upfitted at the dealership, probably gonna be there for a couple of weeks. It probably won't be in service until October, by the time we get everybody trained on it. Unless it comes in earlier.
What is the 4,346 for the year? What is that budgeted? What's that for?
Is that the pump?
$4,336, $4,346 in engine one. That would be,
Yeah.
hold on. An inspection is $70, 2 PMs, and the fluid film, well, that's inaccurate. We're using New Hampshire oil something now. I should change that. At $400.
So the engine's going away in 8 months. And you're gonna
8 or
spend,
9 months.
you're gonna spend $400 to undercover it.
No, we'll probably spend that money on undercoating the new one instead.
Then it doesn't belong here, does it?
That,
Oh,
I
it's
can
in
take this one.
It's in the budget. Well, what's the new engine gonna be numbered? 1?
Engine two.
2?
I mean, my thoughts on that would be just with the new one coming, just to limit the law, and, not putting really anything as possible, unless it's gonna benefit us down the road as far as trading or a figure like that. But I mean, my thought would be just to really get rid of that, and there's still some budget left over in there to take care of it, maybe a minor difference. Just my thought.
So, I actually did a spreadsheet today on every time we roll engine one, for every mile we drive it, it costs us $9.97. Because every time we start it, something breaks on it. And we only have 2 engines. And so it's not something that I can just, okay, we're just gonna park it and not use it anymore. So I have to fix it. And so that's why it's so expensive to keep this stuff.
I mean, would it be possible just to park it though until the new one comes, and then hopefully limit some of those expenses and only go out for,
The other one's crapping out too.
calls and such?
Yeah, so engine one is what we're trading in, and engine three has 120,000 miles on it and breaks down on a regular basis as well. So if one's broken, I have to use the other, and then I don't have a water supply truck. I have to rely on mutual aid for water supply.
The tanker can't be your water supply.
The tanker is shoveling water from the water supply to the fire, goes back to the water supply, back to the fire, to keep the water flowing. It can't be the source at the dry hydrant or at the cistern, because unless it's very close to the fire, we don't have enough hose to, most of the time we're using a dry hydrant or something like that, we're up to 1 mile or 2 miles away from our water source. So we have to have a shuttle. We have to have multiple tankers in that shuttle. And we use Danvertons and Belmonts and other stuff. So no, it can't be.
Anyone else? Question?
Hey, Mike,
Yep.
engine three was the biggest problem last year with repairs. You put 30 grand in there, actually. So this 5958 is totally just maintenance.
Yes.
And then when another 30,000 goes, into that vehicle, you're grabbing it from the vehicle repairs other account.
That's correct.
I don't think Catherine and Scott, knew that piece of this section. So that's very hopeful. It's only $25,000 or $30,000 is needed for engine 1 or engine 3 or engine anything. And last year it caused great difficulty, and then we had to go and try to get more money at the end of the year for potentially being under budgeted. And then there's no grabbing it from fire and apparatus fund or just always finding it somewhere else. Because my big concern of this whole budget is these old dog engines that are going to kill us for money.
Yeah,
I'd rather put it in the budget now and not, we'll get it from office supplies or the $1 or beg the state to allow us to spend more or whatever. Don't undershort these repairs in old vehicles. That's my big statement.
Anyone else? Questions? Jane, you said you had a question?
Excuse me, the rescue truck, $3,670.
So, what was your question, Kevin? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The rescue truck, 21R1, $3,670.
so that's an inspection. The PM on the rescue truck is very expensive and costs a lot because there's so many systems on it. At $3,200 a whack, and that's one time a year, and then the undercoating once a year.
So you're using New Hampshire oil undercoating?
Yeah.
Is that a multi-year deal?
We use truck terms for the smaller vehicles, and it goes to the Lakes region for the bigger ones.
Right, what I'm saying,
It's not one and done.
No, they have to recoat it every year. Touch it up and all that other kind of stuff. It's like recoat, it's like doing it all over. Although they say you don't have to do the whole thing all over, but
so you do it every year to all the vehicles, whether it rolls once or 100 times.
right. No, there are some vehicles that don't get it, if it doesn't need it. But we have to do the inspection first.
Okay. Forestry truck, 8647, chief request.
Wanted to plow.
Oh, yes.
Now, do we have somebody local that does these repairs? I'm just not. Where do they get done?
Cameras, don't they?
So for the stuff that requires an emergency vehicle technician, that's done at Lakes Region Fire Apparatus in Tamworth. Some of the other stuff, we use some local mechanics that are certified ASE certified.
What kind of work requires an emergency vehicle technician?
Anything on the pump, anything to do with the emergency systems.
What's an emergency systems?
So like the hydraulic systems for any of the tools and things like that, they have to be done. Any of the plumbing on the trucks, so that requires all that stuff.
Water plumbing.
Water plumbing, pump work. And while they're there, they get their regular PMs as well.
So if a truck needs brakes, where does it go?
If it just needs brakes, it goes either to the guy down here, I forget the name, just on the left-hand side before you get to Franklin, or it goes to the one in Belmont. Used to be Winnipesaukee truck, now it's in the same building.
Somebody took that over?
Yeah.
Marcotte.
Marcotte's. Yeah.
That's one.
Kevin Marcott took that over?
No.
He's got
For the other one down
he's
here.
got Marcotte's fleet. We got truck bays and truck guys.
Let's go to the tanker truck, $4,286.
Any other questions on vehicle repairs?
Well, I have one more question real quick, and I think it's probably too late for this budget cycle, but just some food for thought for next year. Has anybody ever approached either Tilton or Northfield as far as their town mechanics to see if we could work out a deal with them as far as cost sharing for this type of stuff?
Yes, we have.
Yes, and we kind of struck a deal with Tilton, but then they had personnel changes, and the new personnel in there didn't have time or couldn't do it anymore.
So what Scott, what Tilton did is, and to save their own budget down at municipal services or the garages, they opted not to replace their mechanic, and Kevin, the director of public works or the road agent, absorbed that position. So Kevin, the road agent, is turning wrenches on most of the equipment, if I'm still correct. Eric?
Yep, that's my understanding.
So they absorbed the position to save payroll, so now you've got the road agent that's doing that work for their trucks. So they don't have a lot of capacity to partner.
I have a question for Mike. On 21 F1, you're 8647 and the commissioners are 1147.
Yes, I had $7,500 in there for a 9.5 foot plow.
That's what I thought I heard, okay. So they didn't want you to get a plow. You need a plow?
Yes,
Do you have one now?
we have one on the utility one, but it's not as heavy duty as it should be for some of the plowing that we need to do.
Gotcha.
I have a question. Eric, the commissioners, are they planning a warrant article for raising a contingency amount?
I believe,
Yes.
we haven't gone over warrant articles yet. But I believe that's a new one from last year.
It's only been a few years, but you've been doing it.
Yeah,
Yes.
So the vehicle repairs others, this is the first year you're raising this kind of amount of money, and it seems like it's really kind of a...
No. We've always been raising this kind of money. What the lines that you look at the thing is, it's accounting. I don't know why it ends up being that way.
It's accounting?
The
So
way,
the actual
the way
details-
the $121, $116, no, we've been raising on the other vehicle repairs, 25,000 every year.
And then it gets charged off to the vehicle captain, and that's why you're not seeing it at the top as being expended.
Because
So am I seeing it down in the column?
You are seeing it
Yeah.
down in the column.
they're slicing that pie all over the place.
yeah.
Yes.
So
It's charged to the vehicle that's actually using that money.
Okay.
that
So this
121
one-
last year was what, 20,000, I believe, or 25?
Something like, I don't remember
Okay.
the exact amount, but yeah. Either 20 or 25.
So are these planned expense repairs?
The planned ones are the ones that actually have numbers beside each
Okay,
vehicle.
so these are not planned repairs, these are just in case repairs.
Something broke, and we need to fix it. Repairs, yes.
I'll ask her for
So-
anybody that can answer it. She's done.
So couldn't that be put into that warrant article for the contingency fund? Because the budget committee, one of the charges of the budget committee is also to look and see how the budget is being spent. I never thought to ask about how the contingency fund money was spent and where it was spent.
It
It
hasn't
wasn't
been
funded
spent.
last year.
It was,
No.
oh, no, I forgot about it. I
So there
totally
was
forgot
a
about
point
that
where
meeting.
Kevin Cate got up and he said, with all this extra stuff, you really should take some money from the unreserved fund balance and, put it towards trucks. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, we have that, it's called the contingency fund, and then he and Greg Hill and all those guys from the back corner voted it down.
It was such a horrible
I
meeting.
was like, okay, so great idea, way to go, that's what, and then the execution of it.
I mean, I kind of like it here because it's specific. I know it's a bottom line budget, but next year I'll know.
Well, if you look at the total vehicle repairs line at the bottom,
I see it,
you see what we've been spending every year.
yeah.
Yeah, because some you know and some you don't.
Well, I just figured you moved money from, somewhere to cover it.
But that-
Okay, I'm
that- Because you've spent it, doesn't mean it can't come from the contingency.
Right.
Okay.
That means I have to, if you want it, but the contingency fund can only be 1% of the previous year's voted budget. So the contingency fund for next year is going to be about $23,000.
Okay, and you're looking,
That's fine.
But from the unreserved fund balance, not through taxation.
Correct.
so what's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with that, except if something else goes wrong, we have to again ask either DRA or start cutting somewhere else in the budget.
And if they don't vote the contingency fund through, then there is none.
So then you would make an amendment
Okay.
to this budget.
The contingency fund is a warrant article near the end of the,
Yeah.
it's usually at the bottom. It's, the operating budget is like the fourth or fifth thing done.
It doesn't have to be. That can be last. The
That is true, thank you.
the old saying, that's the way we've always done it. You know, if you ever think I'm doing this, it's when you say it's the way we've always done it. The arrangement of the warrant is the arrangement of the warrant.
What's up to the commissioners?
Exactly. They can put anything where they want to. So we don't need to put this in tax dollars. We can support the passage of the contingency fund and use that if you need it. If you do it here, you are taking it from the taxpayers
Yeah,
regardless.
raising through taxation.
Anything, and I mean anything, whether it's $1 or 20 million, if you can get away without taking it from the taxpayers, that's what you do.
Well, whether it's in the budget or the warrant article, it's still raised and appropriated by taxation.
But it may not,
It comes from the unreserved fund balance.
Well, yeah, the contingency
Well,
doesn't come.
so the fund balance is really for an emergency. It's emergency use.
If
Well,
the-
when
if
you use
the-
it- when
if
you
the-
blow a
if the RSA
transmission.
is written
It's
for
not
a
a slush
contingency fund, it's not to be used for normal operations.
that's right. And then, if the engine calves and one of the engines, that's not normal operation.
But engines breaking down and all the time is normal in this fire district. So we should have normally money in there to repair them. Until we get new engines, which, hopefully, 2 years from now, we'll have 2 new engines.
I would consider a transmission or a rear end or a frame a catastrophic repair that's not a, that's your 100-year flood. I think that, I know you gotta sell it to, back to the, right, when you expend that contingency fund, you have to make a case for it.
And until we get some 2 new engines, I'd be calling them every week.
Right. So,
If you're spending,
Last year, we spent 23,000 on one engine and 17,000 on the other engine, just to
right,
keep it
and the
on the
chances
road.
of that happening again are what?
Well, look at the year before. The year before that, we spent 29,000 on one and 8,000 something on the other. The year before that was 16,000, another one before that was 6,000.
Did you make the same repair in consecutive years?
The pump.
one of those, we made some conscious decisions for rust and frame and.
Wasn't there a pump that
Structure.
went
That
2 years in a row?
was a couple, that was before, that was in 2017.
Okay.
So the pump in engine one is on a day-to-day business because of the way it was designed, engineered, installed. It's been replaced, repaired 3 times and twice in the last few years. It vibrates itself to death. And nothing they can do about it.
Because it's the wrong pump in the wrong position?
It was a,
And when we bought that, guess what we were told?
Yeah, that's what
This
you want.
is
Yeah.
the truck.
Yeah.
This is it
The
right
guy,
here.
whoever
Best
the
there is
guy
to
is,
have,
yeah.
put together by professionals
Yeah.
who know what they're doing.
Yeah, it
The
was.
same line we get
It
every
was
year.
spec'd out by,
on the truck.
right, it was expert
The
knowledge.
same stuff.
well, I wasn't here when that happened, and if I was here, I wouldn't have advocated for that truck.
I want to ask a dangerous question about the plow. Could that have been purchased through the apparatus and equipment fund as an accessory, or could it have been purchased with the truck when the truck was bought?
It could have been purchased with the truck, but
If it had been bundled?
yes.
Okay. But not as an add-on?
Right.
Gotcha.
Why not? It's equipment, isn't it?
Okay, it's something about that
It's
fund
the
that's
equipment and
worded.
apparatus fund.
Right.
It's for
For new.
new or replacement vehicles
Yeah, so if you-
and firefighting equipment
And, you know,
and EMS,
Is that,
billing and.
is that the
and a
one
plow
you
isn't
did
any of
from
those things,
the
but if you
language
bought
model?
it with the truck, I think bundled your,
It would have been okay.
yeah. Because that's how the other 2 pickups came, right, Kevin?
No, they came from a backdoor lease.
But they had plows on them.
One of them did, the other one.
Okay.
didn't.
Oh,
Yeah, one did, one did not.
gotcha, all right.
Okay, can we go to Utility one, what is that, that's a pickup?
That's a pickup, yes.
We're gonna do $3,000 worth of maintenance on that truck.
Find the page on that. Inspection, 1 PM, plow, maintenance, tires at $846, undercoating, and the bed is rusting, and we have $1,000 estimate to repair the bed. It's like underneath, on the sides there.
Yep, I'm not surprised.
Or
It's an 86, 2006.
2006,
Tanker, you requested 8,900. Commissioner said we're gonna give you 4,286.
Oh, that was just,
I forget what that was.
shelving or something.
Yeah.
That-
So, there was gonna be a change in the way the compartments were thing, because they wanted to add a ladder to the back of the truck. They wanted to add, a gas cart, so we had to change the way the compartments were figured and all that. And in the end, the commissioners decided against all that and adjusted the amount.
When you say they wanted to add this and that, who is that?
The firefighters. See, I take recommendations from the firefighters on what they want to do with the vehicles.
Okay.
Um,
So, engine two is the truck we don't have.
That's correct. Not yet.
Right. It's not gonna be here till October.
I think it should be in service in October. Hopefully we'll get it end of August, September sometime.
So in the 2 or 3 months that we're gonna have it in 21, it needs $1,000.
Yeah, so we have to get it inspected for $70, have to get it undercoated, and we're also purchasing a mount for the monitor defibrillator. It's called an X mount, and that cost $480.
So that being the case, why isn't this money coming from the apparatus and equipment? It's all for the new vehicle.
Because it's for an old defibrillator. We already have the defibrillator, and
And if you needed batteries for that old defibrillator, where the money comes from?
batteries would come from the operating account.
The operating account?
Pretty sure.
I think I've seen batteries in the apparatus and equipment fund before.
There might be. But,
Why couldn't the amount come because it's for the new vehicle?
Because you have auto pulse batteries in the apparatus and fund budget.
Yep,
And cardiac monitor batteries in that account.
yep. You're right.
Pressure battery.
Pressure batteries too.
So that entire $1,000 doesn't need to be there to go to A&E.
So, yeah, I guess we could move to $480 to the apparatus improvement fund.
Why can't you move all $950?
Your inspection and your oil undercoating.
Well, weren't we gonna take the oil undercoating from engine 1?
We could, yeah.
I thought we discussed that.
Oh, I don't know if you was gonna reduce that line, or,
Yeah, but we always like to,
Oh, yeah, I can speak up again real quick. So, I do think there's some savings here. What I'd like to do, I'd like to make a motion to make line 660, reduce it to 60,000 even.
I second that.
I missed something, I'm sorry.
he made
Yeah,
a motion to hit the bottom line at 60 grand
For what line?
for total vehicle repairs. 66.
Did you
Yeah,
give him a second?
I second it.
Any more discussion?
we're gonna be over budget on that line.
Always are.
All right, let's vote. Jason,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes,
Eric,
No.
Charles,
No.
Scott,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Grace
Are
period,
we getting close to the end yet?
I was gonna make a motion to adjourn.
we can end whenever you'd like.
There's not much
I
left.
wanted to get through this chunk, and,
Is,
There's not
Weston,
much left to finish.
just a,
You got, you got, so we can do books, periodicals, and awards in one lump sum. I'll make a motion to approve books and periodicals for 100 and department awards for 2,500.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
that's the banquet that didn't happen from before, and I think that's important. So,
Jason, let's vote.
yeah, I'm a yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane?
What? Jane said
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. So now we have uniforms and miscellaneous, right?
yes,
that.
and dry hydrants.
Oh, yes. And cisterns.
I'll make a motion to approve 16,450 like the commissioners.
I'll second that discussion. Discussion. Going once.
How can we reel it into where we've been?
The only difference here is the addition of the new employees, the 4 new employees.
But backing that up, chief, it's still more than we've spent in the last 3 years. Backing that 5,000.
So, career people get, was it 550 per person per year? That's what they're allowed.
Yep.
The call company, I have an allowance for them, and the support company, you know,
You were gonna do something for them for recognition.
Yes.
And we still wanna see that. I
right,
still wanna see that happen.
right, so, and when we hire a new employee, it takes about $1,250 to give them 3 pairs of pants, t-shirts, uniform shirts, winter coat, sweatshirt, things like that,
Yeah,
boots.
Yeah, I get that. I just backing that 5,000 out of the 16 gets you at 11,450, and it's just we've never been there.
Well, I don't think all the bills for the uniforms for this year are in yet, because guys wait till the end of the year and then make a big order, and
Any more discussion?
Not for me.
All right, let's vote it. I'm hearing. Jason?
No.
Kevin?
No.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Miscellaneous.
Which is what?
I'll move
$300,
miscellaneous
total
line.
miscellaneous. Second. Any
Wait a
discussion?
minute, hold it, I wasn't done, I got interrupted. What are you seconding?
You said so moved, $300.
No, I
No.
said I moved the miscellaneous line.
Line, but he
And then
had,
someone chopped me off.
he had put it on it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I moved the miscellaneous line for $1.
Now do you second it?
I'll second it. Sure, I love discussion.
That's for discussion.
So,
Ready
Yeah.
voted. Okay.
we appropriated it in 2020, and what did we do with it?
spent $243 of it.
On, just anything that's not in anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
The previous year, we spent.
Could be a trip to the hardware
196.
store, it could be,
No, the hardware store has a place.
it's,
And the year before that, we spent $319. I don't have the figures for beyond that.
In a $3 million budget, do we really need $300?
Yeah, because You
I
just
knew you were
cut,
gonna
you
say
just cut $6,000 out of my apparatus and equipment and repair that I know I'm gonna spend anyways. So,
Well, except not really, because if you look at the commissioners, you had 25,000 for other vehicle repairs.
Yeah,
That's
they
a
cut-
$5,000 difference.
they cut other line items down.
Oh,
and
you took out
increased
the
that.
plow,
Yeah,
so that's, you already have a plow, you'll have to make do with that. It's not that tight. Anyway, any discussion on
Catherine,
the $1 for miscellaneous?
did you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You go right ahead. I'll tell you if you're wrong or not.
Did I just hear you say this budget's really tight?
No, I was talking about
Okay.
the vehicle repair section. Just that
All
little
right,
section.
okay, all right, I'm sorry, good.
All right, anybody else, $1 for miscellaneous? What type of I mean, I hate miscellaneous lines,
Right, but having it for $1, at least you have a place to, you know.
put money into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you sat there and said you had to buy paper clips or something, or.
if I knew what I had to buy,
So
I would have, it would be in
It
one
would
of
be
the other
somewhere
lines.
else.
So what do you buy
There's a line for
PPE in?
Yeah.
You would think.
You've got
I'm
COVID-19
looking to see if I can.
PPE above it,
Yeah, I'm
and
looking
then
to see.
and you don't have anything in there, but then you've got miscellaneous, so quite frankly, it doesn't make any sense.
Hold that
to me.
thought.
That was a new line that was added because of the grants
Sure.
that they had to keep track of.
Oh,
Nothing, I don't know, grants is probably the wrong word.
okay.
That's what I
Because of the COVID expenses.
Is there no money proposed for COVID-19 PPE in '21?
There is not.
No, it is not.
Why not?
Because right now, we're currently getting our PPE supplies from the state, from the feds, and the state is paying for it. So we don't have expenses in that. The inoculators that we've had, we trained to inoculate for COVID vaccines and stuff like that, the state paying that for grants. Everything's kind of grant funded right now.
Okay.
They just gave the state $3 more billion for COVID assistance.
Coming from your other pocket.
Right.
And if we do have expenses, there'll probably be a grant for it, which I can apply for and hopefully we can see.
Okay, miscellaneous. Handicap porta potty rental, Park Street Station for meeting.
You asked, Ken.
You asked.
You had to rent a porta potty for
Is your
what?
ADA bathroom?
To be ADA compliant,
And we
yes.
had the public hearing for the safer.
Oh, I take it the town halls were closed because of COVID?
Yes,
And we had it in the Park Street Fire Station with the doors open.
yes, so we had to do that, and that
Out of that
one,
riverfront park? Under the pavilion?
We don't have Wi-Fi there. Or is there? Is there Wi-Fi there?
You're asking the
And
wrong
close-
person.
Yeah.
that was $405.
Okay.
Who was that with?
Porta potty rental?
The same people right across the street that you used at the baseball field in the porta potty, same folks.
Best Septic?
Yes,
Yes.
they were expensive.
Mhm.
Porta potty,
All right.
all this year with us.
Any
No,
more
I didn't
discussion
hear that.
I
on,
don't believe the town paid that much money for
any more discussion,
handicap porta potty that we have, but
questions on the $1 for miscellaneous?
No, that's fine. Call question.
All right, hearing none, let's vote. Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
absolutely.
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Charles?
This is miscellaneous for $1?
Yes.
Okay, I say no.
Scott?
Yes.
I'm a yes. I hate miscellaneous lines.
Yeah.
Dry hydrants and cisterns, $5,275. That went up.
There was
Because
some-
we We dive it every year, and last year when we dived it, we found a number of problems with them. We got an estimate to have them repaired, and that's why that number is what it is.
Okay,
Any plans for any additional?
Not at this time. I have plans on where I want to put them, and I want to put in a bunch of cisterns, but they cost a lot of money right now, and I haven't had the resources to have it all engineered out yet. So that's one of my goals this year, is to get that all squared away. So I have a better plan for next year's budget.
motion to approve dry hydrants for $5,275.
Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. Jason?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Catherine, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, before you do that, should we just have, decide on a meeting date, our next one?
yes.
Friday.
Next Friday?
I didn't have it on my calendar, so I don't know if it was.
It was, I put it on the agenda as a, just to remind us
I
to
mean,
talk
we had all
about
those
it.
holidays, and then today's a holiday. We can't have a holiday. It's Elvis's birthday.
Well, that is a good holiday.
Oh,
He would
darn.
have been 85.
He's 86, right? He's born
I
in
thought I
35.
read 85.
His
I thought he was
birthday's in
born in
August.
35
When are we gonna meet
That would
here?
make him
Yeah.
85.
last year.
All right.
This is 2021.
Yeah. My
Everybody
dad
okay to meet next Friday?
was born in 36, and he turned 84 last
What
year.
is,
We're in the
my calendar, see if I'm going
Yeah.
out or something.
Yeah, I'm good.
My dad was
Everybody's
born in 35.
good? Is there any
Yeah, that
information,
works.
any more information anybody wants?
No, it's,
So next Friday?
I'll try and have, everything updated for like the insurance and stuff. If I find out by then, I'll update. And then I'll put it in yellow so you guys know you need to look at it again.
All right, and you're gonna know, you're gonna give us a new budget with the changes?
Oh,
we have?
absolutely.
Just making sure.
And I would suggest you
Just
find a
making
cheaper
sure.
porta potty place. You're
I'm
gonna
not
have
gonna-
$1 this next year.
I'm not even gonna get a porta potty, so if we gotta go, then it has to be handicapped.
Did we vote?
No,
I'm gonna vote with my feet.
I was gonna say, let's,
You don't have to vote.
all right, everybody's good? Did we need a motion to adjourn?
I did,
Yeah.
a couple times.
I'll second it.
You as the chairman can say we're adjourned. That's the only-
Oh, I can just say, you know what, we're done.
That's it, we're done.
There's actually a phrase. All right, everybody, good night.
8:11.
Good night.
Next week. There is a
Have a great
phrase.
weekend, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
That's right.
Hey.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you.